本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。
I miss you.
What's good, Internet? It is Tuesday, July 27th, and you're listening to Waypoint Radio, episode 413. I'm your host, Austin Walker. I'm joined today by Ricardo Contreras.
Yo.
And Patrick Klepek.
Hello.
Hello. How's everyone's weekends been? How's everyone doing?
Vomit. Not me.
Oh, no.
Other people. Stomach baby.
Sickness running through the house?
No, just, I don't know what happened. Had a perfectly happy baby, and then that baby woke up in the morning and puked.
Bleh. Okay.
I think it's a stomach. Puke. She was doing better this morning, so I think it was just some sort of 24-hour stomach bug. I don't know. She eats stuff off the ground. I don't know.
I thought you were gonna be like, she's a person. She's allowed to puke.
She's a person.
We're all
She's allowed to get sick.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the Klepek household, we, whatever makes you happy.
Right, including puking in the morning. Grow up, baby. You'll get through it.
That's how I feel.
Cado, how about you? Anything exciting happen in the Contreras household this weekend?
I mean, I played more Pokemon.
You played more Pokemon. Yeah, I guess I did too, so I can't talk shit. I'm now rank, 11 or 12 or something in that. Nice. I'm sure you're way past that.
I'm 17.
At this point.
Not that
okay.
far,
Okay, but you've been playing you've actually been playing a lot of actual ranked. I said rank. I meant trainer rank or whatever. But that level. Game has a trainer level, it has a battle pass that you get points to. It has a ranked mode, and it has daily challenges, sometimes requiring you to play ranked mode. It also has another set of challenges that are just like a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah,
they're like active events. Right. It's a lot. It's a lot to track.
Yes.
Except that mostly what you have to do is win. And play the game and win. And maybe score some more goals than you normally would. We streamed that game last week.
Yeah. That was pretty fun.
On Friday. Well, that'll go up on YouTube probably the next day or two.
Yeah.
Maybe by the time this is up even. That'd be great. You should go watch that because we had some like incredibly hype moments.
Yeah, we did. The game is kind of set up for a lot of really good comebacks, good comeback moments. The matches are short, but they also are. There's like an ebb and flow to like, oh, I think we're losing, but we can still bring it back, and I think we're winning. We shouldn't let them bring it back. Like, I don't know. It feels good. It feels, and it hits all the right MOBA bits of my brain right now. Now that I'm not playing any other MOBAs, so
right. That is the thing, is that like similarly for me, I've always thought I would enjoy playing MOBAs. They've all been too much of a time sink for me. I said this last week. Hypothetically, I was like, oh wow, this could be a fun thing for me to get a taste of that genre without like going hard into it. And the answer is yes. That like, oh wow, trying out different characters, figuring out where I feel good about what my abilities are, and figure out builds that I like, and then like playing for 10 minutes and it being done is a great feeling.
Yeah.
I really like that they hide the score in this game. It's a score-based game. We've played other MOBAs. I don't know if that was clear from our conversation last time, but you're dunking a ball into various where the towers are, including the very back one, and you're ranking up points basically over the course of play. That could cause some blowouts. I think we had a win last week. Cado, that was 875 to 30 or something, which was brutal. But most of the time, it's a pretty tight. In my experience, it's been a pretty tight match as long as everyone's playing their roles.
Yeah, there's every once in a while where you get. I've noticed that as I've started ranking up in the ranked, I'm seeing less of the 3 people try to take to a lane. Like the game is very cleanly set up into two people per lane and then one person jungling, and then that way everyone gets the XP they need. The second you put 3 people in a lane, and it's very obvious that they're splitting that XP a bit because everyone's a little bit underleveled, and I'm starting to see that less now that I'm into the what is it? Third rank up.
Are you
I
like
think.
third rank great or something like that? Or are you above great now?
No, I'm expert. Expert
Ooh.
1.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Out of the Pokemoba expert.
It seems too early. There's still like 3 other levels above expert, which I don't know where you go from expert, but
yeah, I don't know either. That's we'll find out because you'll get there. You're going to be the best. You see that the best person as of the time that we did that stream the other day was someone with the account named Digimon.
That's amazing. That's
really
very
good.
good.
The thing that I like, so I'm really enjoying my time with it. I'm going to probably keep playing it. I keep going through like, oh, this is my new main. This is my new main. I think Alolan Ninetales is probably my actual main at this point in terms of comfort level, but I really like Bulbasaur. I like playing tank with Slowbro. But the thing that like hit me this past weekend was like I unlocked the thing that lets you upgrade held items, and I finally got to see the monetization here, and it's frustrating to me.
Have you found it yet? Because I keep hearing about it, and I hear about it in these weird like. I feel like nobody can tell me
you can buy the
do.
currency to upgrade.
The upgrade currency for
you
held
don't know.
items.
Oh wait, so you don't know? Yeah. You buy the. Upgrade
I heard that in some
items.
way or another, people were considering it pay to win.
Yes,
because you could upgrade certain stat items, and I know you could upgrade held items. I just couldn't figure out the steps from putting money in. Like, where do you put the money in to get those things?
To get those tickets, it is labyrinthine, Cado. So yeah. I don't know. I couldn't tell you without booting it up and looking around to find it. You know what I mean? It's one of those things.
I'm just having trouble because I looked for it once I heard like
I'm trying to pay to win, and I don't know where to give the money.
I don't want to. I just want to know what.
Yeah,
it feels like at the very least, and this is the smallest, like the only like slightly positive thing about it, even though it exists, it's bad. It's like they're not pushing it. It seems pretty far like hidden because I tried to find it to see
that if you were 15 you would find it because or if you were however old if you were 19 did you it's one of those things where it's like the people who are really what it's about for me is like it's less even hey I feel like this is evil or something. It's more that I feel like it's going to undermine my sense that I'm having a good time and that I've lost, that I'm losing because of skill and my bad decisions. And instead I'll be feeling like, did they have 20% more run speed out of combat or whatever? So let me explain how this works. Held items are passive bonuses that you can give to your Pokemon. By the time that you can upgrade them, you can give them 3 held items. Those held items have a range of things that they can do. I often use, for instance, the Float Stone, which increases movement speed when you're not in combat, so you can get in and out of combat and in and out of like important places more quickly. But there's also stuff that's just like when basic attacks hit, the damage is increased by 1% of the opponent's opposing HP. There's one that's like when you score a goal, your max HP increases by 100, right? Stuff like that. So like, and that's already really useful, and you don't have to pay for that. That part that you get those are free. But the difference is that let's take the max HP increases by 100 one. At level 1, when you first get that, or I guess rather at level 1, you get that 100 HP increase when you score a goal, and you also get another. It's actually 108 because the actual item itself also has like a second like hit on that gives you a plus 8 HP to that. So it's 108 HP. At grade 10, when you get it to level 10, you increase it by 150 HP. And then on top of that, I want to say it's I don't have the full chart with me. I don't have the number 10, but it's somewhere in between like 8 and it's probably somewhere around like 100 is what I would guess. I guess we could do a search for this cookie. It's called an Aos cookie, which is a very funny name. Yeah. So at level 10, you'd increase it by 150, and then also your upgrade stat is another 80. So you just look at another just flat 80 HP boost. In fact, that might just be a flat boost. That might not even be when you score the goal. That just might be you have that HP boost.
Yeah, I believe those secondary stats on those items
are
just like
full-time passive.
Yeah.
At level 20, it's 160 HP boost and a 200 per goal upgrade. And then at level 30, you don't get any more like per goal upgrades, but you get a 240. Yeah, you can keep going up to level 30. There's not a fourth form of the cookie. There's only 3 cookie forms.
It only shows up to level 20 in the like item.
You can eventually get it up to level 30, and that
unlocks a second,
presumably, and that raises your health by 240 to begin with, right? And that's the way that like all of these work.
Right.
The one that I'd seen that like makes the most sense to me. It's hard to deal with raw numbers in games like this, right? Because it's like, well, how important is 8 versus 200? Because in certain circumstances, you know, in a world where when you only have 1,000 HP, that's a big deal. But if you have 10,000 HP, you're not, that 200 HP doesn't really matter as much, right? You're going to lose that fight or win that fight based on how you play. But something like
might get you one
speed,
extra auto
hit or something,
like,
which maybe that makes or breaks the whole game. Like it isn't unheard of. You know what I mean? That would do it. But you know, there are also items that increase your attack and move speed and critical percent chance and all that stuff by a percentage instead of by flat numbers. Mm-hmm. And so you have something like the Wise Glasses that raise your crit percent by 7% at the top, at the level, the grade 20 thing. Or you have something like the move speed one, the Float Stone, which increases your movement speed by 20% versus by 10% at level 1 and level 20, or by 0 and then by 120 on level 30. It's like, that makes me feel bad. It was going to make me feel like, a part of it is also like, maybe on a long enough timeline that people who spend the money to get those things or grind for, we should note that the grinding would be a lot to get to level 30. The upgrade items you need is, it starts low. To go from 1 to 2 is 3, then it's 4, then it's 5, then it's 6, then it's 8, then it's 10, then it's 12.
Yeah,
after 15, it starts skyrocketing, and then the final 20 to 30 is 100, 120, 140, 160, 180, 210, etc. And that is wild. That's like you would be grinding that for such a long time. I think I had a little over 100 after the last like 5 days of play. You know. But maybe I had more like 150.
That makes
something
sense.
like that.
I wonder
right?
Well, I have like 5 of these up to level 10. And so what is that even? It's just I wondered, I haven't hit the moment where it's like, oh, I see where the grind is, and I think it's strange. I don't love that that's hidden either. Like, as far as you can see when you open the items, they go up to level 20. And like that looks like the max, but I guess then at that point it unlocks something that feels particularly like odd, because by that point you probably will have gotten most of the, like, you know, the coins exist in the battle pass, the coins exist in your trainer level. There feels like there eventually will be a time where you stop passively making those until the season turns over.
Right.
At which point,
at that point is the only way to
is the that's the one part I still, because I saw something ridiculous, which was like someone said that what the trick was buying energy, which is like a loot box, like the way that Apex has like loot boxes where you fill up an XP bar and then you get a loot box. It's the same thing. And somebody said that you can get tickets through that. So if you boost it enough and like get a bunch of those loot boxes, you'll get tickets kind of, but it's random, right? And I was like, that seems like a weird workaround that I wouldn't call pay to win, really. But
well, the thing is it limiting the amount of it's not limiting the amount of games you need to play, but it is limiting, or it is making it possible to get there more quickly, right?
Well, in theory, but it's also
in terms of
like that's
playtime, or not playtime, in terms of real time, not in terms of playtime.
Right. It's just like that's a random chance to get tickets, right? There's like a bunch of other stuff in that box.
Yeah.
So I was like, is that really? But apparently there's some way to get the upgrade material directly, and that's the part that I haven't seen anyone explain. Just people talk about it like, hey, you can just buy this. It's like,
I saw someone say in the thing where it is, now I'm losing my mind to try to find it. Held items, item enhancers, you can purchase them from the store.
You can purchase them for tickets, but how do you purchase them for money?
Well, you buy tickets, Cado.
How do you buy tickets?
That hits start, I think, right? Is that not where you buy it? Or you only buy gems from that? There is a way, God.
Right.
I saw this broken down the other day.
Yeah. There's
all of this stuff drives me up the fucking wall.
It's the worst. But part of me is glad that it is this difficult to even find this option. Right. But once people find the option, they're just gonna,
It will be.
I think I found it. Okay, hold on.
Yeah, good. I'm glad we're both now just looking through menus. Sorry, Patrick. This is what it means to get the. You asked us last week how the real money shit was in this game. This is how it is.
Did I bring that up? Did I say that I cared about that?
You said we should wait until today to talk about
it. Those are different things, Austin.
Okay.
Prove it.
Okay, this is weird. Also hidden, if you go into the store and you see you can buy...
Which store? There's multiple stores, Cado.
The one where you can buy items, which is the Eos Emporium, where you can also buy fashion stuff.
Yes, right. They've mixed that together.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in the items section...
yes, okay.
You can buy them for tickets.
Yes, or for real money.
Well, if you go in and you don't have enough tickets for the amount you want, it'll be like, do you want to buy X gems in order to turn that into tickets?
There it is. Okay, so that's it. Yes.
Okay.
Now we know. Thank you for doing the research, Cado.
Because it was driving me mad. I was like, but it's there. And I think the issue was that I had enough tickets to buy. It lets you only buy them in like groups of 50.
Right. That's all. I mean, given the amount that we just said we needed, right? Also, I do have another 100, so I must have earned another 100. I upgraded a bunch of them on after we played that day, and then I must have earned another 100 over the weekend. So that's, they're coming in.
What I meant is you can only buy 50 of them.
No, I know what you mean. I was saying separately to correct myself from before when I said I'd only earned 100. I'd earned 100 again after my first 100. So that's where I am after 5 days.
Yeah.
So, I think getting up to that first mid-tier is probably right, but getting up all the way is where it's going to feel like a difference. And that's going to be frustrating because it's going to make me feel like if I can't get past a certain rank in ranked play, it's going to be like, well, is it because my held items aren't upgraded enough?
Right.
And that's a fine thing to feel if you can successfully grind those out over the course of a week or something. But if it's going to take longer than that to get my float stone up to a competitive level, I'll feel bad about it.
Yeah. I really wonder what the timeline on this is going to be like, because it's hard to tell, right? It's hard to tell what the effect of them is in the game, because this is one of the only places you can see stats, right? Like in the Pokemon page, there's just a star rating for your attack, your endurance, your mobility, but you don't see that means you have 20 speed, right? So we can't then compare okay, if the base is 20, you're adding 20 on top of that, that's doubling it. We have no clue what those numbers are. The only thing we can get is if you go into a practice mode, there is a dummy.
I guess you could run the tests, right? Yeah, that's the thing.
That you can you can't get the test on your stats. What you can do is get damage numbers.
Right,
and that's the closest we can theory craft out this.
And
other
people
stuff.
we are 3 days out from someone. By the time this podcast goes up, I bet there will be bigger breakdowns on all this shit.
Yeah,
because there are people who've been playing this game nonstop, and it is what it is. Welcome to MOBAs, I guess.
Yeah, it's weird because what they've done, what they did is they extrapolated the normally in MOBAs, you're buying these sort of items in game, during a match, right? There's item shops, and this sort of this item gives you a passive stat bonus is a very normal thing of MOBA progression. And they basically flattened that to be a pre-battle choice because the matches are so short. Like I think that makes
Love
sense.
this part. Yeah,
but then
totally.
the bit where the items themselves are like upgradable feels like because
I truly
we
would
found
feel better if all it takes would be like, don't let me buy the tickets and I'm good. I don't mind it that it will take me forever to grind it out. It'll be fine, you know?
Or like
it's mostly a mental thing. It's mostly I will feel bad,
right?
Feeling like I don't have what I need to win, you know?
Or honestly, I would love to know whether or not that's taken into account in matchmaking, like
right, sure.
An average like level of your held items, like might affect like where you're matched with. But we don't know, like, there's just, like, a bit of transparency missing here to really know what's going on behind the scenes with how this is balanced. Yeah.
Nintendo. Right? I'm sure they'll get right on it, Cado. They're working on the patch notes.
God. Well, this isn't even... I mean, this is obviously still Nintendo to a certain degree, but it's a different... Yeah, the developers, Tencent, it's not even, like, Pokemon Company's involved, obviously, but it's a Tencent developer, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you'll get possibly they will bend to the wills of a genre and its expectations, but absolutely, the shadow that Nintendo casts is long.
God, patch notes for MOBAs are like pages and pages because you know they're updating everything and there's a million characters.
Right, but isn't the point going to be, and maybe reasonably on their part, this game isn't for them? Like, go away.
Yeah,
just stop. If you're looking at the patch notes, go play the other MOBAs. You know, I'm just. I'm speaking from ignorance here because I haven't played this game. I have a vacation coming up and maybe I'll download it and poke at it.
Yeah, you should download it. You should come play it with us at least once or twice because I think like Patrick, we had a run where it was like a neck and neck. And you know, at halfway through, not even halfway through, a little bit like 3 minutes before the match was over, our team was like, we should surrender. Someone put up a surrender vote to be like, let's just give up. And Cado and I gave a big speech that no one else on the team could hear, but our chat could.
Yeah.
And we both voted no to surrendering. The third person voted no to surrendering. Maybe they were who could say? Maybe they felt us through the cosmos. We connected.
Yeah.
And they voted no. And we like did a big play at the end where we took out the mini boss Zapdos, which gives you a little bonus points and gives you an opportunity to make huge scores. And we ended up winning by 3 points, 433 to 430. Like 3 points being very like a very tight margin. Sure. And it was the whole chat popped off. It gave us that feeling of cute, like it's the closest thing I think that we've streamed since like our PUBG days of feeling like a surprise win, you know, like that come from behind huge success.
Yeah.
And that feeling is like so good. And the fact that game can get you can get you learned up to where that feels good so quickly compared to like, you know, dozens of hours of League, hundreds of hours of Dota, whatever it would take for me to get into one of those things.
Right.
Is a victory. Like it's an incredible. The fact that it is able to get me up and running in that speed is great. As someone who's always wanted to play a MOBA but has not had the time to, I think it's really good at that. And I would love to be the person who reads these patch notes and cares about them,
right? If
they wanted to go that direction. But you're also right that if they decided, fuck it, no, this is going to be Nintendo like we're not going to show shit.
Well, I mean, there's an advantage.
A place where I'm like, okay, well then what MOBA do I go try to learn how to play?
Well, right,
and it wouldn't be one of the two I just said because I just don't. I know I don't have the time for it. I'm not doing Final Fantasy 14 again.
The other newbie one, Here's the Storm, like doesn't exist anymore.
Well,
right?
So someone told us, we brought this up in chat, and that is like the popular understanding of it. But apparently that's not exactly right. Here's the Storm still has a vibrant. According to the person in our chat, maybe they're wrong. Still has like a vibrant community.
Mm-hmm. It's just not updated anymore.
It's not updated, and the esports scene is falling apart. That said, let's say I don't feel good about giving Activision Blizzard any money in this particular moment.
No, I was trying to you know,
I know what you mean.
I think people would assume like given our last podcast how we feel. It's just if you're thinking of how you climb the ladder from that. If
maybe Smite, are people playing Smite still?
I think
so.
I don't know. Yeah.
What are the MOBAs? What are the MOBAs that don't take my life over?
None. NA. Even
it's this game, right? Like in some ways it needs to be encapsulated to this degree in order to sort of like allow yourself to put, you know, some limits on it. Even then I'm sure there will be people who, go hog wild on this game and just take the 10-minute chunks to be, well, I just need 100 of them.
Yeah. I should get into Air Mech. Remember Air Mech, the game that used to run in browser windows, used to run in Chrome.
What?
It used to run in Chrome. It was like a transforming Air Mech thing that had kind of it was really like a Herzog Zwei style like RTS, where you like had a plane that flew around, but then you could also transform that plane into a mech and shoot with it. I guess maybe Herzog Zwei also let you do that. It's been a long time since I've looked at Herzog Zwei. But and you have to like summon units to fight. You basically have to build creeps, because it was like in that style of action RTS. And that game's still around. I don't know.
It's also possible they may do it because the thing about Nintendo that is frustrating is because they don't, my irritation comes from getting involved in the games that I like to play in which they weren't transparent. If you were a Splatoon fan, you were very happy. Their patch notes were extremely detailed. Explained like mechanics and like balance changes like related to various weapons. Because that's how that game had a pretty thriving competitive, maybe not necessarily, capital esports, but it had a very thriving online community that seemed to be pretty happy with the developers and their responsiveness and the transparency that they, this is me just, 50,000 foot view, but that is the thing about Nintendo is like you can assume the cynicism because it's earned, and yet nonetheless you could have a team or a game in which they go in a different direction because I don't know, throw your hands up and like they just are. So yeah, I'll be curious to see where that game falls on that, and Cado's right, like they probably have a little bit of more a freedom of movement just by like not being made by an internal Nintendo team, but I don't know. I do think there's probably worth in. I could see them also making like the decision is like, hey, like the moment we go down that path, we're kind of making and pitching a different game, and part of what we want to do is to sort of contain it, and the people we lose because they chafe up against the parts that aren't catering to like baseline MOBA expectations, they can lose those people. Like go to the other games because the audience they're chasing is essentially like what I'm seeing on Twitter the last week is I didn't know I liked a MOBA or my first MOBA. Like that's the audience they're chasing. It is it is not necessarily people who are in League or Dota and are just like poker curious. It's going to be folks that look at this and heard essentially when Cado pitched it and he said 10 minutes, a light bulb went off for you. And that was it. Like that was it. If he had said the matches were 40 minutes an hour, I would be like, not a chance.
Not a chance.
Right. Or maybe you would have downloaded it, done the stream.
We would have done one stream and that would be it. Right.
That's it. It goes on the list of games I played for the year, and I'm not going to think about it again. Exactly. So Cado talks about it for an hour on a Game of the Year podcast. But that's where I want where that almost becomes not necessarily just a frustration over Nintendo's lack of transparency as much as it's them designing a game. Like at what point when you design a game so well, and it seems like this game is like really well designed, is attracting even folks who are hardcore MOBA players. Like, well, then what do you do with that mixture of audiences, and who are you catering to, and who are you choosing to irritate based on like kind of the barriers or what you're saying and not saying? And so it's so early
maybe it'll
days,
be a situation where they give patch. I guess one question actually here is just, how does the Pokemon company do this shit? Because we often talk about Pokemon as like a purely Nintendo thing, and there's good reason for why we do that, but the Pokemon company also has some different. There are different vibes sometimes from the Pokemon company.
Yeah, the Pokemon companies will track you down if you leak Pokemon and sue you.
Yes,
so
that is true.
They're aggressive.
They are aggressive, I guess. But are there patch notes for Pokemon when Pokemon get nerfed in Pokemon? Does that happen?
I think so. I don't actually follow competitive Pokemon. That's the issue, is that I don't follow competitive Pokemon.
I see. Yeah.
I mostly just enjoy being very casual and playing through those games the one time. But I would expect so. I feel like people talk about it.
Hold on. Hold on.
All
Pokemon
right.
Sword and Shield patch notes
I
from
also pulled these up.
Good, great.
Serby.net. I don't know. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Version 1.31.
Yeah.
Serby. December 22nd, 2020. Size unknown. That's probably just the website. Fixes. fixed a problem with some battle mechanics.
Next point. Excuse me?
Yeah.
Various bug fixes. And that's my
Nintendo, baby.
And then you do have something that is like slightly more specific, like fixed a problem with. Well, no, but this also fixed a problem with some battle mechanics, prevented Groudon and Kyogre having trick used on them. Kyogre.
At least it tells you what the thing is, which is the skill trick. But like, it's still vague. It's not like it doesn't tell you what the problem was.
Various bug fixes, right? Like that's what's happening in Mario Maker constantly, which they would. I don't have the line in front of me anymore, but it was like it was the equivalent of various bug fixes, but it was a line they used every time in Mario. It was like general like improvements and updates, and then I would go read like the Reddit or a YouTube video, and it's like, no, they like they tweaked the physics and broke thousands of levels because now the turtle doesn't operate. Like the turtle shell doesn't operate exactly the same, which means like the timing that people had done for various like hardcore extreme difficulty levels didn't work because they were built on the old timing, and none of that was disclosed. And so, so these Pokemon updates are in line with how Nintendo generally, and for most games it doesn't matter. Like who gives a shit about like the liner notes for the Mario Odyssey patch?
We are like such a small percentage of people who give a fuck about this stuff.
Especially when you're talking about Pokemon, right? Like Pokemon is just like so it's unfathomably so huge.
Right. And it has a huge competitive scene, but that scene is a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of people who buy and play Pokemon.
Well, also that scene does probably what a lot of scenes do is you can essentially grind out the differences. Like the scene will figure it out. You know, that happens in Smash Brothers.
And that's going to happen
happens in Smash Brothers all the time, right? Like, and
those patch notes were a little bit better, I would say.
The Smash ones,
but I mean, like generally, like audiences that are not given information, there are ways to find that information, and they will root it out, and that'll also be the case here.
In the same way that we talked about how, hey, you could test to see how important these held items are by going into the practice mode and test that shit out. People will do that the second a patch drops for this with every character and be like, oh, hey, look, the Ninetales does less damage when using this buff or whatever, and they'll figure it out. But I hope that they do more. I hope they at least say which characters get. I don't know. I get why devs don't do this. I remember the Titanfall devs, the Apex devs put a thing that was like, there's a reason why we're being kind of obscurantist about this. And it's because we don't want our fans getting so like upset ahead of time before they even feel what the changes are. We want them to go play it and have a holistic experience around what this feels like, and then they can come to their own conclusions.
Because if you have prior information, it biases your interpretation. Right. I remember talking to Lars Bakken, who's like one of the senior Destiny devs back in Halo, and I was asking him about balance changes, and this is probably like 15 years ago at this point, and like the summation of his response was like, well, so part of the problem is like you're looking at changing the balance of the weapons, and people are really upset that the pistol is too weak, and he's like, actually the problem is that the shotgun isn't strong enough, and then So you can imagine if you were to put into the patch notes like fixed X, like you're just biasing people naturally towards and so that's where the fine line is where you want folks to just go in and feel like that nebulous, it feels right, even though there are people who are tweaking like number values to a very fine degree to get you to that place. But even that is a fine line because for like you said, like for some players, it's like useful information to know. If it's information that is going to impact your ability to like do the thing, to play the game, then that's kind of like, actionable information you want the audience to know. But sometimes there is use in event or later. I think it was the way like Lars mentioned was like, then you tell them later once you've solved it, like, hey, rather than, step one, we're going to privately tweak the values of the shotgun to see if that fixes the pistol complaints. And like tell people that's what you're trying to do. You just do that, and then when it all feels good and people are like, "Oh, the game is in a good place," you can explain then, "Hey, here are the values like we had to shift around, and then ended up in a place where everyone is happy." So there's no universal way to, and especially in online games that have competitive scenes, it gets even more complicated than just a single player thing.
Yeah, totally. Anyway. Patrick, we should talk about the thing that you wanted to actually talk about last week and didn't get to.
That's fine. I'll download this and I'm going to be on vacation.
Come play.
I got a week from now. I would say I'm playing on a plane, but I'm on a plane with a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. And
also, you can't play this on a plane because it's a multiplayer game. So
look, just get on the internet Wi-Fi and just surrender 30 seconds into a match. What I need is World Flipper to come out before I go on.
Right. Yeah, that'd be great.
I think that's August 11th, though. Although on one of the PR companies we deal with, I was logging in this morning to request a code for something, and they're like partnered with like the world, like they're doing the PR for World Flipper, and I was like, "Ooh, hey, what do I got to do?
What do I got to get an early bill?"
They're at 800,000 pre-registrations. Like, let us in, please.
Let us in. I'm pre-registered.
Their little graphic says the graphic only goes up to 1 million, so I'm hoping maybe with 1 million they're just like, "Hey,
let's just go.
Let them flip. Like, let the flipping begin."
Oh God. Anyway. Ragnarok is what you wanted to talk about last week?
Yeah, yes.
Ragnarok.
I
mentioned it briefly. It's a game that's out now on Steam. I don't believe it is live yet on the Oculus Store. So if you have an Oculus Quest, the advantage there being it is a wireless device that you don't have to be connected to anything. You can bring it around your house and with you. I don't think it's formally launched there yet, but Ragnarock is it's a Viking themed.
Does it have
drum?
Any connection to the Ragnarok Online?
I don't. That's anime, right?
It's anime. I used to play this.
I think a lot of people used to.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh yeah.
Like Ragnarock Online's been around for like 20 years, right?
It's an old one. Yes.
I'm surprised it's still going. From 2002. Jesus. Yeah.
Dude, they put out. I get. Most a sad face for like all the Matrix Online fans, but like most old MMOs are still going. Like I just got an email a couple weeks ago for a new expansion for Anarchy Online. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
that game was very popular in like the late 90s, early 2000s. Like EverQuest is still getting formal expansions.
But Battlestar Galactica MMO continue?
I didn't know there was one.
Yeah, it was browser based.
I can't imagine. See, licensed ones are the ones that run into trouble.
Because
there's always someone else that will there's always a community. No matter like how popular a game is or isn't, there is always a community that will like maintain it because of like the friendships and communities they built there. And that would have been the case for the Matrix. If they're like, hey, what do they call Matrix heads?
That's what they called us. They called us Matrix heads.
Yeah, and that'll come back. Later this year. That new movie's coming out. Where's the trailer? Everything I hear about that movie, I haven't heard anything. All I've heard is the couple of people that I follow who know anything about that movie. I guess I'm like, it's been screened once or twice. Which is like all they've said is like people. They made a movie and it was described as purposely as divisive as possible in a way that you will either come out of it being this is one of the greatest things I've ever seen, or
that's the most exciting news I've heard about that movie yet.
Why? Like I haven't read any of the spoilers, but like it was vaguely described as like it's like something occurs, a narrative decision is made like right from the go that is either you're on board and you're like, I want to see what the rest of this movie is, or you're like getting up out of your seat and just like, I'm out.
This is the best possible news for any movie. This is it. This is especially the Matrix.
I'm not anti-trailer, but it is a movie that I am going to see what the responses are to the. I need to like get because I'm really it's gonna be so hard to resist.
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping the first trailer will just be sort of like a vague setup, and I can like just ride that to, the movie.
When is that? Do we have a date on that?
December,
even?
I think. Yeah, I believe it's December. Damn. So yeah,
it's coming up.
Anyway,
the Battlestar Galactica MMO was closed in February 1st, 2019.
Okay. But look, had you asked us to all pick a year,
right?
I would have picked a year earlier than 2019.
Yeah.
So Ragnarok is a music rhythm game. Like it has you are on a Viking ship, and you have these runes coming down in a very I believe, doesn't Harmonix own like the note chart technically as a patent?
I think they did as a patent. I want to say that that's
Sorry,
true.
Patrick, I just looked over at our chat to that GIF you sent over. You're talking about a music game, and there's this man.
Different,
unrelated.
Wow,
unrelated.
Unrelated music game. But yeah. Look, music.
Unrelated VR music game, even.
Unrelated VR. Well, there's a lot of VR music games. That's like a very popular genre on there, especially with the rise of Beat Saber. But
right.
Yeah. So I think Harmonix owns the note chart, but it has like something similar in which there are these runes that are note equivalents that are coming down, and there are these big drums in front of you that you gotta whip with your controllers, and that's the game. But and the thing is, like, I've tried to get into Beat Saber a handful of times. Like the music in Beat Saber like does absolutely nothing for me, where it's a lot of like dance and trance music, which totally makes sense for the gameplay they developed. And when I'm in it and like playing it, like, oh, this is really well designed, I enjoy it. But then I constantly find myself like doing whatever I need to do to mod the game to put in just, I don't know, like more typical, just other types of music. But I've always bounced off the game in a way that has bummed me out because it is so clearly well designed. I love music rhythm games. I'm always looking for different ways to even exercise. Like Beat Saber is a really great way to do kind of like a cardio exercise without, having to get out of the house. And it just never quite clicked for me. And this game, like, the music is so fucking ridiculous. I mean, I don't even know how to describe Viking core. Like, is that a genre? Like, I don't know. But it's just like, it's Viking songs. Like, I feel like I'm a Viking. It's rock music. It's like sea shanty kind of equivalents. Like, and all this with just like thundering, loud ass drums. Like, and
that's, you're playing the drums.
You're playing the drums, and there's 4 of them in front of you. And you cannot help but like, I find myself like I'm often playing it standing up, and like kneeling down and like going dum, 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 dum. Like I'm like I mean I feel
on the
like,
ground or
no, but just sort of like to get just because like the way I'm whipping my arms up and down. Like, you can't like there's, as far as I can tell, there's nothing in the game that is like using an accelerometer where you need to like hit it at a certain,
hard, but you want to.
I find myself like getting into
you want to go like da da da
da. Yes. I'm the guy up on the concert stage with like the 4 big drums, like just like whipping his arms like up into the air and bringing them down. And the note charts are just exquisitely designed. Like they are so good and so much fun. When the reason I find myself so frequently attracted to music games, and I've said this in the past, is like I just have zero. I took guitar lessons. I'm still bitter when in elementary school and they had everyone come to the gym and like, hey, touch a bunch of different instruments and like sign up for an introductory class. And I was like, I think the saxophone sounds cool. And they said, well, your fat fingers are too fucking big for the saxophone.
What? Rude. Are you fucking kidding me?
That's not how they said it, but that's how the reject.
That's how you were a child.
I was a child, like 4th grade or whatever. That's how I took it, and it sort of killed.
Also, it sounds like that's what they meant. They didn't. What else could they have meant?
Yeah.
And I'm sure what they like probably were trying to say was
you could be the greatest saxophonist of our era, Patrick.
I know,
and it's been taken from you.
Me and Kenny could have been on our yachts. Having a good old time. And I'm sure like looking back now as a parent with like 2020 with like hindsight, it's like I'm sure they're like he's gonna have trouble because of his fingers and he'll get frustrated, and then what if he never gets into music after that? Instead what they did was just stomp out all the interest I had in music with my fat fucking fingers. They don't even
fuck off.
These don't seem that
I'm gonna find that person.
That's fucked up.
And it kind of crushed my interest in the time, and like also like, oh man,
I was in band. I cannot think of any reason why that would be a thing.
Yeah.
I don't.
It's bullshit.
And maybe I'm even wrong. Maybe this is like a story I've told myself. Like, it's 4th grade, but like I feel it burn in my heart. And I'm sure everyone has like stories of that in school. Some teacher being completely shitty over over something. But So I don't know if that was like an origin story, like my bad people have origin stories for like how they become great people. That was my origin story for liking music and rhythm games, because it allowed me to explore the fantasy of like interacting with music in a way that I couldn't do by actually playing an instrument. I mean, one of my favorite moments was when they added to Rock Band 3, when they added the keyboard.
Yeah.
And because like synths are like my favorite instrument, and so like the idea of being able to play like a rudimentary form of the piano that approximated what it must be like to actually be good at it, but to feel like you're, that's the beauty of any of these games, separate from like the Bimani Konami track of
which is just you're playing the line.
You're just playing the line, and those are popular for different reasons. Like there's a lot of those on Steam that are extremely popular on Twitch, where people are just playing line games. It's just you are just responding to sheer note charts that are coming through that at some point on an easier difficulty maybe had some semblance to do with the rhythm of the music, but like that has now been lost in search of sheer challenge. And Cado, like the Maniac strains on DDR are still often frequently associated with the music. You start to lose it a little bit. It's like it's riding a weird line between just wanting to make you look like a person who is just flailing about, and also like timing with the music. And so those are like,
they have to work around the realm of you have to be able to move your feet even theoretically in this direction. So
yes. And so different music games approach that in different ways. And Boston's More Than a Feeling, I quite literally can't hear that song without thinking about my junior year in college, where I brought home Guitar Hero, and that was like the thing we did before we went out to like drink, and then after we came out, we're doing like that song, and like being able to nail that on Expert was like one of my like all-time favorite gaming memories. And I've on Apple Music, they have like these music video playlists, and we'll frequently put that on so we can tell my child that like the TV's on. Like, it's on. You're 5. Like, we're not watching Bluey. I like that show, but we're putting the TV on, we're putting music on, and these music videos will play. And we, like, Boston, More Than a Feeling, like some live version of that. And, like, I quite, like, immediately, like, transported back to junior year of college and just thinking about that note chart. And so I just had this really strong relationship, specifically with games that, I like all games that incorporate music, but specifically I respond so strongly to the note chart and Harmonix's approach, in which they really try and make you feel like you are part of that instrument and are playing that instrument to an abstracted degree that like satisfies my interest. Like I never come out of it going, and now I want to learn to play the guitar. Like the fantasy was fulfilled, and that's super fucking cool, because it felt like it got me a step closer to a thing I will never actually achieve with a real instrument, but I get to get the sensation in a way that is like really personally, like emotionally and satisfying from like that kind of like fantasy perspective. And so the drums are not as high on that list, but because I've just never I was never able to get the foot pedal right in Rock Band. Like I would watch people like Alex, and that's an unfair comparison. Like, but the ability to like go back and forth with that foot pedal, like I'm trying to do it with my feet now, and I was like, I can't do it. I can't get it to go back and forth. And so anyway, Ragnarock is this game with a tremendous music selection that is, I think part of the reason I've responded so strongly to it is because the music is just so different and out there and fun and weird. The note charts are fantastic, where when you're starting on easy, scaling all the way up to hard, there's sort of like 3 levels. Even on the easiest level, it feels like a fun approximation of the notes that you would be, or like the beats you would be hitting with an actual drum set. And then the medium level is like perfect. Like I'm constantly doing things. I feel like I'm right in the rhythm of it. And the way the game is set up is, and this like the problems I have with the game in the moment, it just came out of early access. It was in early access for a year or so on Steam, I believe, is that the game doesn't measure your success based on accuracy, which is traditionally how these games do that. Basically what's happening is that as you're hitting the notes, you're building up a meter on you're hitting your drum with hammers, of course.
Of course, sure.
And that fills up a meter that can go to 2 levels. So it's like, as you're hitting the notes correctly and on time, and you're not missing, this meter fills up, and then it hits a certain point, and you can trigger it by whacking this shield off to the side, and it gets everyone on your boat to go, oh, and they row a little bit faster. Because the way it's measuring success is not on, hitting all of the drum notes, but is on how far the boat gets by the end, and then you can get a medal. And so that is influenced by the amount of times that you're hitting this extra speed, and did you choose to execute it like the level 1 speed, or did you like take a risk and do the level 2 speed, which gets your boat to go a lot faster for a lot further.
Sure.
The problem I have with it is that the triggering it requires you to take your hands away from the note chart and hit a shield off to the side, and the note charts aren't designed in a way to give you, there's not like an obvious point where it's like, hey, this is like a moment of relief, like, do you want to hit that? Especially on the harder difficulty levels, there's just no window to take your hands away from it that I can find. And so what frequently happens is that I've built up the meter, and then I go to hit the shield, and then I can't bring my hand back fast enough in order to like get back on rhythm. And so what I end up doing is ignoring the medals and just playing the notes. But then that's unsatisfying when I get to the end, where it's like, oh, the game's essentially booing me, because even though I hit the notes all correctly, I wasn't engaging with the speed mechanic to get me towards like how it's measuring success of a bronze, silver, and gold. Yeah. And what's frustrating is because I wish it was just like on the note chart somewhere where like every once in a while, like there are often like solo notes where like you're only hitting with one hand or the other. You're not using both. Like just give me an extra note to hit that I can do that to trigger it. Or what I hope they end up doing, and there's been a lot of feedback in the Steam forum, so I'm hoping they'll just add this, is just map it to one of the buttons. Like if I could just hit a button on the controller that triggered it, so I can just stay in the moment, keep hitting the notes, and because there are like several songs where I've gotten the gold, like I have, but like I can't trigger your goofy mechanic because it feels like it violates like the note chart. Like it's like, hey, you're here, keep hitting the notes, you're doing a great job, but also now we need to go off rhythm to arbitrarily hit a thing to the side. And Rock Band addressed that, or Guitar Hero addressed that in various ways. One, I think you could hit a button. In Rock Band, you could also have had an accelerometer in the guitar where you could swing it up, and that would trigger the, like, I forget what the star mode or whatever was their bonus mode. And what was important about that was that it happened separately. You could still keep engaging with the bass mechanic. You could still be following the notes and then do the thing. And I hope they end up in a place with that on
in
Ragnarock.
Rock Band 4, for when you were playing drums, it would just give you a cymbal crash that was like, this will turn it on if you hit it, right? Like,
and that's what this needs. Is like if they don't want to put it on a button because they want you to stay. Like, I understand how they got
in
here.
The
like,
zone.
Essentially,
just give you something special to hit.
Mm-hmm. Right, the shields are a cymbal crash. And, I see what they're doing, but the problem is they're giving the player agency over when that's enacted completely. Whereas, like, Rock Band finds a middle ground. It's like, hey, if you don't want to, if you purposely don't want to do it now, like, it's up to you to hit that, but we're going to put something in here that's built into the flow of the note chart so it feels natural when you're triggering it. Mm-hmm. Whereas here, it seems like I was trying to read strategies where people have found a way to make it work better, and it's like there are only certain parts that you can reassign where the shields go. You can kind of pick them up with your controller and put them in your play space, and if you finagle it just right above you, you can like get the game to sign off on it going above your head, and so then the trick is like just to swing your arm up really high before you bring it down, and that you just have to hope that you hit it when it goes up, and that triggers it. And that all just seems like bad solutions to a problem that can be addressed in different ways. And hey, add a new mechanic to your note chart is like a heavier lift than just let me hit. Like there's like 4 buttons on this controller. Like just let me hit that. But otherwise, I'm really really liking the game. It's. Like I said, the track selection is fantastic. The note chart is great. It's a lot of fun to play, and it's been a while since I've gotten into a music game this hard. And like the only barrier I'm running into is like I want to start ticking off the medals. Like I've Like I'm better than easy. I'm not good enough for hard, but I'm feeling really
dilemma.
satisfied in medium. And so I want to start like spending time like doing a song 6 times to like get that gold medal, to get that expert, to fill the stars, like you do in Rock Band. And it's frustrating that it feels like the game is preventing me from getting there. So yeah,
do you think it's possible that you could just get over that specific hump by figuring out a different?
I mean, maybe that's what I'm going to try and do. It just and I'll if people are playing this and have strategies, like it just like reading like 3 different message board threads where it was like, where's the place that you hide the shields to accidentally hit them, so that it was like, all right, like if enough players are running into this issue, maybe it's something that can be addressed in the game. But if folks have other ways of, I could do it on easy, because then you have like lots of moments where there's space in between the notes. But the moment I start sort of like accurately replicating much closer to the drum note chart, it doesn't really work as well. But it's extremely good. Alex Navarro should strap on a VR headset and play this, please, and show me how it's done.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's on Oculus and Steam, and it seems like it'd be a natural for PlayStation VR.
Does it need VR?
It needs motion controls, right?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. There's really no. Yeah, I mean,
want someone to hack it so that I can play this on like a Rock Band set or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't have a VR set, and I'm like,
this seems doable.
fun, but I wish I could play it.
Yeah, I mean, the VR scene does have like a very robust like modding and customization. Like that's what VR came out of. In a lot of ways, even though now Palmer Luckey is off making like border drones for the U.S. government. I think last I saw, I believe that's somehow he managed to like friends on Facebook, and so he like post updates about his like weirdo things that he's doing. And then every time, I think I've mentioned this once or twice in the pod, I keep waiting for someone to rat me out and I get unfriended, but it hasn't happened
yet. Yeah.
But he's off doing some pretty gross shit with technology. But and Facebook also a terrible, awful company.
Yeah.
But like the Oculus Quest 2 is just like one of the coolest pieces of tech I have. We just like recently started messing around with like the animated shorts that like different companies have made, where you can watch essentially like, real time, cartoons and like live in those spaces. And like I've let my 5-year-old like do it for a couple minutes at a time, and like it's delightful. I love VR. I'm hoping not that Sony's a perfect company, but I'm hoping that the PSVR 2 will be in a place that for folks that understandably are like as cool as the Quest 2 sounds. I'm
not trying to give Facebook any extra money than
and then the alternative is like, what are you going to spend $1,000 on a Valve Index? Like no. So I'm hoping that the PlayStation VR 2, which I think we'll hear more about early next year, and that's when they're making their big push on that, ends up being the kind of thing that people can play games like this sometime early next year.
That'd be great. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back with some more stuff. All right, we are back. Where do we go? Where do we go from here? Let's Cado.
Yeah.
Let's go to court.
Let's go. Yeah.
Dun dun.
Great. Yeah, dun dun. That's the classic Ace Attorney sound effect.
Yeah, people are always quoting it.
Right. Yeah. Great Ace Attorney Chronicles is out. Is that out this week? It's out.
Out as of this recording, it will be out. Yes.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
As of this, not recording, as of this publishing.
The
listener, you can go and play this game now. The Great Ace Attorney, this game is like old, very old, 5-6 years old now, but it never came to the West.
Gotcha.
They released it, I believe it was originally 3DS, and eventually there was a mobile version as well, but both of those versions were Japan only. And I think it's because of the weird localization history of this game, of this series. The Ace Attorney franchise has been like always very strongly localized to where like they do the thing where they just assumed people playing any video game in like the States or the West were like are not going to understand any, like wouldn't play a game set in Japan, right? So like you're playing the original Ace Attorney games, they're like in the US and they like change foods to be like it's a burger instead of like it was like I don't know, some sashimi or some shit. Like it's like very weird. And so this one is set in, I don't remember the date, but it's set just as Japan is opening its borders to trade with Great Britain and like other world powers. Like for a long time they had closed borders and like traded only with like the Dutch in one very specific port. And then like there's an opening at a certain point. So we're like right around that era, and this is actually kind of very interesting. There's this through line of like there's a new legal system being enacted that is partially based on the British system of like having a like series of courts and judges. Like the whole thing is apparently modeled off a British system. And so you're playing as a university student. The opening, I guess, minor spoilers for the opening version. Yeah. The opening act, you've been wrongfully accused of killing a professor at your university who was also British. He was like a visiting professor.
How'd they die?
Well, that's a big spoiler. At the beginning, they think you shot him.
Okay.
Okay. You find you see your character Ryonosuke. I forget what his other name is. He picks up a gun off the ground, and a gunshot is heard, and then like there's a body there with a gunshot.
So are you defending yourself in this opening case?
Yes.
Wait, do they let you out to do your own investigation?
No, so what happens is you are best friends with a law student who is going to defend you.
I see.
Kazuya, and you all are like best buds. He's also like a brilliant mind. Does he
think you did it?
He believes you. He believes you. But
all right, I don't know if I believe you.
It's looking at the facts of the case at the beginning of this trial, I didn't either. I was like, what the fuck is going on? Which is how these games play out. There's always like a withholding of information that ends up being like, even if there's a logical conclusion with the evidence that you have in front of you, they will like, there's gonna be a reveal later down that like
it's plot twist. The game is like always been. I've never played these games, but the way I always see them discussed on Twitter is always just like it's like. What if M. Night Shyamalan, it's what a twist every 2 hours.
But you're the one who's like figuring out and pushing the things into place so the twist happens, or you see the twist, it feels great, and then you throw it in someone's face, and you reveal that you know what they've done, and then their hair poofs out, or their eyes go evil, and you've like pushed them over. It's great. The moment that you like
so dramatic.
that you reveal that the most pure, innocent-looking person is actually the secret, devious killer is the best feeling in any game. That series is great. Anyway.
And so your friend Kazuya is going to defend you. He's like a genius, like prodigy law student who's about to be going to Great Britain on an exchange program. And like this is like on the heels of a treaty between Japan and Great Britain. There's a lot of like
it's already wild political. To me that so compared to other Ace Attorney games, one, it takes place in Japan, which the other ones don't. The other ones take place in this.
They do. They originally do, but
do they originally?
Yes, it is the Japanese court system in Japan. I mean, they're localized.
Yeah, this is what I mean. I mean the localizations of them.
Right.
Yes, the localizations of them put them in vague North America, right?
Right.
And it's always so goofy to see the way in which that localization has been done. And so it's so fun to see that this goes the other way. And I was like, no, this is Japan.
This is part of why it seemed like this was like just like they didn't even try to release it in the West 6 years ago, was because that localization was still kind of like what they thought needed to happen to make them like work in the West.
Which it doesn't. The thing, to be clear, the part of the reasons why this is so goofy is that like you're in the Phoenix Wright series, your like chief sidekick is like a shrine maiden, from a history, from a long lineage of shrine, like a family that lives at a Japanese shrine up in the mountains.
So how do they explain that in the localized versions? She's just a shrine maiden of New York.
Yeah. It's like California or something.
Yeah.
Like in my mind, this
real close to Japan, as close as we could get it.
In my mind, this keeps taking place in California, and I'm thinking in my mind, or not really. They take place in Japan, obviously, but in the localized versions in my mind are California, because like there's lots of film sets. Often, like the first game has like a huge like film set as one of its main locations. You go off to the mountains a lot, but there's also like beaches and parks, and
that's California.
It feels like it has to be California in my mind, in the Phoenix Wright localization. Anyway,
also they like.
It's
do they
so
change
funny.
the name? Do they call her a shrine maiden, or do they call her family like shamans or something? I think they
Maybe
even
they're called
changed that.
shamans.
Yeah, it's like some like vaguely mystical thing that is not like specifically Shinto shrines. I think.
Yeah, they're spirit mediums.
Mediums. There, right?
Yeah,
there we go.
Which might still be what it is in the original. I don't know what they call them in, but like visually speaking, it's very much a Shinto. Shrine maiden vibe, right?
Yes, and so like in this game, there's no way you could do that localization with a straight face. No. Like it is obviously set in Japan. There's geopolitical like maneuvering happening here, where like part of the reason that they're trying to like this is a secret trial. They're trying to finish this up real fast because they're like the treaty was signed recently, and they don't want the person who was killed. The victim was a British.
Like politician?
No,
like,
not even a diplomat. He was a professor, just a citizen, right? So like killed on Japanese soil. They're like very worried that this is gonna like ruin this new relationship.
The political. Sure.
And like that part of it is actually really interesting. The way that they kind of draw lines on like, we are taking cues from the West in developing our new legal system, but we are still also a sovereign nation. We have our own like ideals that we need to strive towards, like, and it's the most like, because the localization is just like, yes, we're in Japan, like these are the things that are happening. It's the most like it's felt the most like interested in the world around it. Even like the original stories are all kind of like the original trilogy of Ace Attorney stuff is like goofy and very kind of localized, so I can see how you can get away with that weird localization where they just move countries. And this one like is more interested in what is happening in the world, which is a fun addition to the general storyline. It's very similar if you've ever played any of these games. The pacing and comedy is still that like it has a very particular style of like a writing cadence. Even like the speed at which the text appears on screen is kind of like the speed of characters talking and things like that. Like all of that is still there. It still feels like one of these games.
Right. It's like well, how could that be the killer? ... Right.
Yeah.
When the killer was at the bar last night, and then like do. Yeah, like the music kicks off. It's great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so the first case is this case against you. I won't spoil.
Yeah, we don't have to get into particulars. It's one of these cases. Yeah.
But one of the things that you learned very early on is that your friend Kazuya is about to go on this exchange trip.
I think it's Kazuma. I've now looked at the names.
Okay,
it's Kazuma.
My
I'm
brain
pretty
is
sure.
just,
I've now looked at the screen of
good,
the official website.
Kazuma.
You know,
Kazuma is about to go on an exchange, and like this is early on, so this doesn't really count. But like one of the big things about this series is that the Japanese legal system has like a 99% conviction rate. Once something hits trial, it is supremely difficult for defense attorneys to overturn anything, like to get their
to win that case.
And so like in the original Phoenix Wright, you're playing a defense attorney, and so like it's like in that series they keep bringing that up, but here you're at the beginning, so that expectation isn't there yet. But you can see the beginnings of how that system gets put into place because of the geopolitical maneuvering and like why, like the reasons why, like why that conviction rate gets to where it gets because of like keeping up appearances and things like that, which was very interesting to see. But also this also like plot wise turns into the reason why you end up defending yourself is you basically are told to jump on the bullet in case the case goes bad so that Kazuma can still go on his exchange to Great Britain. If he's not the defendant that loses, he'll get to still go, which is important because eventually you after that case is over, which is long, there's 5 cases in here. I'm not sure exactly the length of them all. Is that both game?
That's
one game.
That this is 2.
Yeah, this is so like the first game has 5 episodes in it, and I finished episode 1 and got a little bit into episode 2 because
gotcha.
This is also part of this game. Usually, is that there's an investigation mode. But the first case usually takes place completely in the trial just to get you up to speed with those mechanics. And
those mechanics are the same as what they've been, which is like, I'm asking.
Yeah, examining.
Yeah, you have evidence. Yeah, go ahead.
Examining evidence, finding contradictions in witness testimony. There's something that was introduced in one of the like crossover, like I think it was the Professor Layton X Phoenix Wright games where they're are sometimes 2 witnesses doing testimony, and sometimes if you get one of them to say something, the other one will react, and you can like switch targets basically at that moment to kind of get something extra out of them.
Right.
Those are all new to the like quote unquote mainline games, but were introduced a little earlier in like that crossover with Professor Layton. And yeah, like that first it has the like last minute reveal of some evidence we never knew existed, and then you find the thing. There's a couple of not really pixel hunts, but like the same sort of thing where you're like trying to find something in an image.
This is kind of pixel hunty in the past games where you're like looking at a screen of most of the time you know what you're looking for or can see that something is off place, but there have definitely been examples in that original trilogy at least of like, what the fuck am I looking for on the screen?
I haven't hit any of that yet, but it's still early, so I'll let you know. What was I gonna say? There's Kazuma ends up being your kind of like assistant in this case. He like still like is in the courtroom like giving you advice and stuff.
Right.
And it's funny because the models that they use are all very similar to like the mainline games. So the person that you're playing looks like Apollo Justice, and Kazuma looks like Phoenix Wright. Gotcha. The first case is like there's like a character from the original trilogy. I forget the prosecutor's name, but he's this like balding Japanese man with glasses that's always like the first prosecutor in all these games. This time he's like wearing what's it called? It's not. It's like it's got the wide, like very wide shoulders. He's got the samurai like updo thing, like the little bun. I can't think of what the name of that thing is, but it's like very, very obviously Japanese. But he spends most of the trial like kind of bowing down and like singing the praises of Great Britain, which is a lot. And then that first episode takes all place in the trial, and then the second episode starts and you're on your way to Great Britain. Kazuma has decided to stow you away with him because you're best friends and he wants to go to England with you, and you decide to just go along. And this is where you meet the great detective Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, Sherlock Holmes.
Right. Yeah, I remember this. Yeah.
Who is a new character that seems to be kind of specific to investigation moments. I don't know. I assume that he's gonna. I keep hearing about him, so I assume he's gonna keep showing up in other investigations. But the investigations in this game are generally you're at a crime scene, you search the place with your reticle and add things to evidence.
Right.
You question people. You show them evidence and be like, hey, what do you think about this? But now here's Sherlock Sholmes making a bunch of deductions that are like the most one-to-one, like, I saw a thing, therefore this thing must, like, they're bad. It's always bad. It's very much sending up like that form of line of logic as like unrealistic. Like,
super deduction powers that no one could ever fucking do. Yeah.
And it's very funny. Like, most of the time you're like, no, that's not, like, he thinks you're Russian because obviously you are this assassin, which there's a photo of, and you look nothing alike, but that's the only person that is in the boat manifest that could have done this murder or whatever. It's very funny how often they're like, no, actually, Sherlock Holmes.
You need to do actual.
There's more to it than just connecting dots that seem to fit together. And it's very funny that they've chosen that character for that. And that it kind of ties into the like relations between like these two countries, and like the assumption, like there's a British woman in the first case, and there's a lot of assumptions about, like classic racist shit of like, the savage Japanese language, and the like not wanting to speak it even though she does or whatever. And then like, it's just like got a lot more of a sense of a world and things happening in it than any of these games ever had, which is really interesting. And so far, like, I'm enjoying it. I'm excited to keep playing. It's it feels like these cases are longer than I remember, because it took me much longer than I thought it would to get through that first case. But I think it's partially because too there's a lot of like setup and world building happening alongside just the regular mechanics. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I'm gonna keep playing it and plugging through.
Nice.
Beat Sherlock Holmes to his. It's very funny. The basically they're saying that Sherlock Sholmes. Yeah, they say that the story still exists in this world, and it's just a biography being written of the actual person dude? That is being circulated around the world. God. Yeah, it's a
name,
thing.
By the way, is very funny because there is a French book, I want to say, named Arsène Lupin versus Sherlock Sholmes, which was written like in the early 1900s to get around copyright law so that they could do a Lupin versus Sherlock Holmes story without calling it Sherlock Holmes. I guess at the time it might not have been copyright, but
even if that wasn't the case then, today it would be true, because like Netflix even got in like parts of that story and characters are public domain and others aren't.
That's correct. But they're very litigious around it.
So Netflix was recently sued. I don't know if the lawsuit's been, I'm sure it'll just be settled and Netflix will just pay out to make them go away. But the most recent one that had, I think it's Millie Bobby Brown, who played Eleven in Stranger Things, playing like the sister Holmes. I watched like half the movie. It was like totally entertaining. Enola. Yeah. It was like totally. Yeah. I mean, it was totally entertaining, but I haven't watched the other half. But anyway, they got sued, and part of the reason they got sued, and that the estate or whoever owns the was arguing, well, what's not in the public domain is Holmes' characters showing emotion. Part of what's in the public domain is that he is cold, calculated,
but the books where the stories where he showed emotion aren't correct.
100% that their estate owns the ones where there's any sort of, I don't know, what you'd call character development. And so I'm sure that will go nowhere.
And the years are ticking by. We'll get out of this. They are milking it for as much as they fucking can until the last of those stories are in the public domain, presumably. It's so funny. But in Japan, this character, Sherlock Holmes in Ace Attorney, is just called Sherlock Holmes. I think they're just like, fuck it, his name is Sherlock Holmes. But in the localization, they named him Sherlock Sholmes because of the risk of lawsuit. And I don't know if it's because the Japanese court like notion of IP is like like, are they
Different.
safer?
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
in general, I've always heard that Japanese IP law is softer inside of Japan because that's how you end up with, or maybe it's not law and there's a culture of licensing that's cheaper or something, but that's how you get all the Super Robot Wars games there, which are huge crossover extravaganzas with all of this different IP that happens. You just can't do it here because here it's a mess in terms of what you have available to you. Though actually, the new Super Robot Wars game is coming to the States, which is
for the first time, right? That's
the
like
first
the first time in 30
for
years.
the first time with real anime. You know, there have been
with
other
the licenses intact,
right? The Super Robot Wars games that don't use licenses have come out here, but this is the first one in forever. I think.
Right. This is why I saw a lot of people being like, "Oh, this is like the first."
It's a big
real
deal.
One.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Anyway,
Anyway.
one last thing is there's an interview from 2015 by Bob Mackey over at US Gamer, which doesn't exist anymore, right? That's
correct. Yeah.
RIP. A lot of good stuff was written over there over the years. Anyway, with Alex Smith, Alexander O. Smith, sometimes depending on how it's written, who was the original localizer on the first Ace Attorney. So if you look it up, it's expert witness, an interview with Alex Smith, the writer behind Ace Attorney's English debut. It's a good piece. I was flipping through it while you two were talking, but there was this one. Where is it? Yes. Okay. Take a look at the characters, environments, and cultural reference of Ace Attorney, and it's hard to ignore the game takes place in Japan. Contrary to the surrounding evidence, the English language version of the game establishes the setting is the United States, all thanks to a single piece of evidence from the first chapter. Though this choice would become less believable with each passing sequel, Smith explains how his hands were tied on the matter. Quote, normally what you do in a situation like this is leave the location vague. You'll say, hey, we're in nowhere land, and you adapt the cultural references that will go over the heads of your audience. The specificity of the setting had to be made because there was an episode where this guy has some sort of clock his girlfriend gave to him.
Yes, of course.
It had to be set to some time zone, and we were like, oh crap, I guess we have to be specific about it. So we just chose that without thinking about it. Without thinking that much about it. And I know this has become an issue in later games, especially the difficulty in selling where the game is set, because the Japanese references have gotten layered on heavier and heavier and heavier.
It becomes like it's unmistakable. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's almost funnier. Funny. Having to spin the plates of a mystery universe, and then also spinning a plate that the world is set in the Bay Area or something.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Because, you end up dealing with, like, rival spirit medium clans or, like, people who have a lineage going back hundreds and hundreds of years to being, the inheritors of some great ancient. And it's like, okay, but their house could not have been here 500 years ago. It simply couldn't have been.
And this makes sense for 2001. Like I think even now it's 2021, 20 years later, we are just, I think, entering a world in which, like, when we are seeing fewer and fewer sort of like adaptations of things that, take the story set in Japan and put it in New York. Like that still happens. Like, Ghosts in the Shells still occur. Like, I do think we've gotten to a place where that is not necessarily always the case.
Correct.
And
for sure.
Like 2001 was an era in which all media that was being brought over, it was like, hey, the best way, and probably also mistaken assumptions. Like I'd be curious how much of that is based on research and how much is that just based on,
this is how Americans are.
American audiences, it's got to be a burger and fries, and it can't be sushi.
Got to be a jelly donut.
Those people exist. Like I'm not pretending.
Yeah.
But at the point that you're selling like a case mystery game on the Nintendo DS, like I wonder if that's not necessarily where you needed to make that change in order to sell it. But I'd be super curious to know if anyone on here listens, like, had any insight into that era, like how those decisions were made, whether it was like data driven or just, look, fucking Americans are lazy as shit, and if it's not set in America, even if this very distinctly Japanese video game, they will only play it if it's vaguely set in liberal California.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, we still got a couple more things. Death's Door. Patrick, have you kept going forward?
I've played a little bit more of that. I've finished out the I'm about to finish the second area. I have gotten some weapons that I wish I had gotten sooner, like minor spoiler for Death's Door, like to catch up where we on our previous conversation, we both liked the game.
Yeah.
Felt the bosses were real highlights, like the reasons enough to play the game, and that the kind of combat and exploration in between was a little weaker. To the point that it was kind of like, I really want to love this game, and I mostly just like really like it. And so I've continued to pick at it because I do like that stuff enough that I wanted to see what else is there. And like, for example, I just got this this big hammer that when you do the charge up move, it's basically like you have Thor's hammer, and you are like, it shoots off little lightning bits that hit other enemies. And so when you have sort of like mobs that you're dealing with, it's really fun to like whack them and hit them with the hammer, and then like follow that up with a fire attack, because then the fire attack compared to the bow and arrow will go through enemies. It does less damage, but it'll go through them and all the way to the other side of the screen. And so that weapon alone has made combat like even just like regular mobs like way more interesting and fun, because I find myself like giving myself distance, like taking off a couple pot shots with the bow and arrow, and then like charging up, hitting them, like watching like 4 enemies go down at once, because like I've softened them up with some of my magic attacks, and then like take them out with the hammer. It's made even boss fights a little more interesting, because like you can kind of use it as like an AoE attack from a distance, and so it just kind of changes the way you approach. The weapons you get early in the game, you get a sword. The sword is like the default, and then you kind of have to seek out the other weapons. But I found a sword, daggers. The difference there being one was like a little slower, one was a lot faster and it attacked more often. I got an umbrella that I think has like a wider sweep.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
So maybe more like a broadsword sort of equivalent. But I didn't find any of them different enough to care. And this was the first time where I was like, oh, this weapon is a lot slower. It's a lot more deliberate, but I really love the bits I get alongside it, and it has made combat so much more interesting. I got an upgrade that lets me like take out the walls that have like little crumbly bits, and I actually have found myself like sweeping back through some areas, discovering that one of the secrets walls that I could crumble down opened it. And this is, again, skip ahead a little bit more if you want like slight spoilers on like some of the secrets. You find a hidden boss that is clearly tied to these bombs, like, because it tells you like this is the bomb secret boss, and really difficult, really satisfying fight. And when I beat it, I got an upgrade for the bombs that are not required. It's not something you need in the game, but it made my bombs no longer do area of effect damage to me. Ooh, and so I can be in the middle of a fight, and as long as it takes a beat or two for the bombs to charge up, I can set those off and like be completely safe. And I think like the fire one ends up doing passive damage to enemies, which makes me now want to track it down and go do that fight, because that sounds really useful. And so yeah, I'm finding myself like dig into the game a little bit more than I was before, even in the moment to moment bits in between the bosses, because I'm just getting a little more mechanical variety that I wish would have been forwarded a little earlier in the game. This is also a small thing, but like I wish there wasn't a charge up on the weapons. I wish I could just like be aiming and hit circle and it just like did it. Like make them weaker as a result, because but like having to like sit there, set up the aim and like shoot it, it just means I use it less often than I would if I could just hit the button. If they gave me a weaker version of it, it's like, hey, it's not gonna be as useful. You're gonna kind of be spamming it. And it's like, yeah, but then I might use it more often.
You're talking about like the bow or the bow,
the fire. I just wish I had versions that could be used a little more frequently, especially because like a big dynamic of the game is that you're regaining your MP not through drops, but through attacking enemies. And so what the game wants you to be doing is to be using those and then attacking, and that recharges your magic, and like that's how you're switching between those. And I kind of wish I had the ability to use those a little more frequently than I am.
Than you actually get to.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm liking it more. I'm about to finish that second boss soul, so about 2/3 through the game, barring some major surprise. But yeah, I don't know if you'll get back to it, but I do think if you get that far, I think you'll find that some of that stuff makes the moment to moment a little more interesting.
Yeah. I want to shout out a game that I'm going to go deeper on probably next time, because I think Rob may have checked it out a little bit, or should certainly. A game called Chernobylite, which is in early access until Wednesday. Comes out on Wednesday. This is not like a review of the full game. I've barely dipped into it. I've dipped into it enough to be like, this should be on people's radars if it isn't. And then later this week we'll have a deeper talk about it. But like very much Chernobylite, Lite, because that's the name of a material, a strange element that has come out of the Chernobyl disaster. It is a game that's very much inspired by like S.T.A.L.K.E.R and Metro and stuff like that. But the basic structure, it is a first-person exploration shooter game. So again, in that space. But the fundamental structure of it, which takes, a little bit to get going, is so distinct and interesting. You are a scientist and a researcher who uses this Chernobylite to power a device, a handheld gun that can open a portal between places. It's not like Portal. It's not. I'm going to immediately say, don't get your hopes up that it's like a puzzle Portal game. As far as at least so far, it isn't for me. It's just that's a mechanic that lets you get in and out of levels. Basically, you have a home base which you can upgrade by building stuff. Think of it like a more focused version of the Fallout, a focused and purpose-driven version of the Fallout 4 base building stuff, where you're like, I want to build a device that lets me build ammo so that I can bring ammo out in the field with me.
Which is my problem with that. As someone who gives well, I know, but there.
Yes.
There are lots of people who just like have want to build things so they look cool, and it represents how their community would. Like you would build it in the setting. That does. I need like
some mechanical.
Yeah, it doesn't have to always be just like ammo.
And that game
but I need
totally. If there weren't other ways to get everything you needed, you just didn't need to engage with that shit at all, right? Anyway, here you need to engage with it because you want to upgrade your revolver, you want to get more ammo, you want to build better armor for yourself and for the other people who you are sending out into the wasteland. Basically, there's a heavy narrative hook up top. Like, Patrick, I want you to at least watch the first 30 minutes of this game if you don't like, or at least the first 10 minutes of the game, which open like a horror game very much. And like, that's vibe. And then it settles into this rhythm of like, okay, a new day starts. You have a list of missions to do. You can go off and do one mission. You can send the person who's working with you and then the other recruits you get off on those missions, and they have a percentage chance of coming back hurt, of getting captured, etc. The missions all take place in distinct zones that are like part of the larger area. And so you come to learn those over time. And it's a lot of like risk reward stuff of like, okay, do I want to send this person out even though there's a 40% chance they're going to get hurt? Do I want to go to this harder mission myself and bring a better gun? And that stuff has been really neat so far. Again, I want to get deeper into it and then talk about it with Rob. So yeah, it'll be out on Wednesday. It'll be out tomorrow.
This opening looks good.
The fact that they're able to, and that's part of the thing that's interesting to me about it is that it's blending the sort of narrative driven stuff where there's like a very clear structured, here is a game level with like a more open world day by it's what it's giving me is it's actually giving me a lot of the feeling that I wanted from that multiplayer why am I blanking on the name of it, the multiplayer game that feels sort of Stalker-esque, Escape from Tarkov, right, where you're like, okay, I'm going to go into this thing, my goal is to try to find a really decent gun. My goal is to find 12 chemicals so that I can come back and use those chemicals to help build a garden so that I can get the garden stuff I need to raise our food level. So it's also sort of like a State of Decay in that way, where you're doing a base building and you're like, I need to make sure that the morale is high back at base. I need to make sure that XYZ, and the writing has been really fun and weird in a cool way. So it should be on people's radars. It's been out in early access since 2019, and somehow I just missed it. Mostly positive reviews on Steam, so people who are deeper into it seem to like it. Again, I'm going to put more time into it this week, and I think Rob's at least aware of it. I'll ping Rob and let him know.
Chernobylite is I could. That name doesn't exactly roll off the.
It does not.
No.
It does not. No.
And that makes I hear that. I'm like,
why people,
oh, okay. Like you took a stalkery thing and I guess made it roguelike-ish. I was like, great. Like at this point, despite liking roguelikes, that is immediately like puts up a like. I start to shake a little bit when I hear that. So, this is coming out for everything.
Right, this is out soon. So yeah, you should try to get code for it.
I'll got an Xbox version of it so I can check it out.
I've not touched it with controllers. I should give it a shot, just to see how it feels. So yeah, that's on my plate, and we'll talk more about that later this week. Let's take a quick dip in the question bucket before we wrap up. Gaming@vice.com is the address. And actually, speaking of roguelikes and roguelites and dying and other stuff, I didn't bring it up, but I'm playing Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin. Finally.
Oh yeah, okay.
I'll talk about that later, another day. Also, we don't need to go down that rabbit hole again. It's still good. I still love it. It's the first time I played Scholar of the First Sin, but Dark Souls 2 I love, and it turns out I still do.
Because you haven't played any of the DLC. Right?
None of the DLC, so I'm very excited to get to that. Anyway, Logan writes in, Waypoint crew, when I'm playing video games, I get really bad anxiety, and specifically a fear of failure when the video game punishes me for failure. I don't mind it if a game is challenging, but if a game is going to punish me for failure by making me go back and have to redo a significant amount of progress between save points, my brain won't let me have fun. I spend the entire run or life anxious that I'm going to get killed and lose my progress and have to go back and do it all again. Not looking for help with my anxiety. That's between me and my therapist. The reason I'm bringing this to Waypoint is that there's a huge swath of games I'm interested in, but I'm worried I won't enjoy. I really like deck building games. I'm afraid to play Slay the Spire because I'm worried I'll spend the whole run thinking about how I'll probably lose and that I'm wasting my time. I really like action RPGs, and every time I hear you talk about the precise and rewarding content of Dark Souls, I'm inspired. I'm almost inspired to pick it up and play it, but if part of the game's expected cycle is for me to fail a boss fight over and over again and spend hours replaying the same section, I know I'll just get myself worked up and not have any fun. I assume that mentality the mentality needed to play those games is ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, fail better. In your collective experience, is that mentality something that can be learned? Is there a roguelite or Souls-like game that I should play that will just be miserable for a couple of hours, but eventually I'll break through this and have a good time? Or are these games just not for me? I can handle that. There are plenty of video games out there, but I don't want to be selling myself short if this is the kind of thing I could get past. Thanks for your in-depth and nuanced takes over the years, Logan.
Hades, probably, right? Like that's.
I was gonna say, yeah.
What was it? Oh, Hades.
Yeah. Hades has been. This is difficult because I think all three of us come from a place of these games click for us, and so it's like really difficult to examine. A lot of the issues that this person's writing in about. It's like, well, I don't have those hangups, and so it's like difficult to diagnose. Then, what is the game for you that you're going to respond differently to, given that I don't respond this way to those games.
And it's hard to know how did we train ourselves, or why do we respond the way we do.
Right, how did you get over that hump for whatever reason? Was it that you never actually had that hang up and it was just a mental block? Which for me, that's what it was. It was like, it was actually a mental block. It was like, as soon as I started playing a Spelunky or a Dark Souls, it turns out like, no, like this lines up perfectly with your love of Mega Man. Like there's a straight line between those types of games and the satisfaction you got from pattern recognition and like doing through loops on levels. But I would say the reason Hades comes to mind is not because of my own experience, but because of just looking at other people's experiences. In the amount of people, like Agita came on here and like explicitly said, I really did not respond well to roguelikes and that loop, and fell in love with Hades. And I believe it, was her game of the year last year alongside me. And she's also someone that has been tweeting, about Dark Souls, and how that was also a game that she couldn't get into. And then I think that what I was interested after she had played Hades, I was like, I wonder if Hades will unlock new games for you that you can appreciate, because Hades allowed you to get a mental model of how do I enjoy these games? What do I need to do to enjoy them? And so Hades, I think, may be a good test case for this person to figure out truly, like, are these games just not for me? I'm going to wall them off, and that's fine. People can like the things they like, and this is not for me. There are lots of games, I think, for all of us where that is just the case, whether it doesn't fit into our lives or tastes. But I think
or we have other things, right? There's other things that can be our things where, like, I recently I've been having conversations about why is it that I can die in Dark Souls over and over again, or in really traditional roguelikes where literally the whole run is over, there is no forward progress made, and that is fine by me, but I stress the fuck out when I play something like Stardew Valley, which I played, 20 hours, 25 hours of Stardew Valley between PC and Switch and stuff. But I really hate the feeling of like, I'm not optimizing for this month. It feels terrible to me if I like buy the wrong seeds at the store. And that means that I have to wait a couple extra days to get the full crops that I wanted to get. And it means I'm going to make a few $100s less that month. And I'm going to have to wait another year until the spring cow festival or whatever. And like that, like fucks me up in a way that makes me not want to play those games because of the way failure feels in those, or the way I attribute myself to a sense of failure. And I know that's a me thing in the same way that Logan knows that this is a him thing in terms of the way he feels around death here. But like that, some people just have different things. And I feel like maybe don't beat yourself up over it. I guess he did say there are plenty of other video games out there. He knows this.
I do think that maybe Slay the Spire is actually a good one for this because to me at least, the individual battles are fun enough. Yeah. Like I don't often, almost ever, make it to the end of a Slay the Spire run. Like I'll get like two floors, not floor. Whatever. What are the big bosses called? Is it floors?
Yeah.
I think I'll get 2 maps in and then lose to that boss, and it's like, I had a lot of fun in the individual battles up to that point. And I think that if that sounds like you can still have fun there, because like if you think about it, like if you like card games, if you like playing card games and you've played like Magic the Gathering, for example, you're gonna lose out of the like 50 games,
50%, let's say. Yeah.
You're gonna lose 25 of those, right? So if that sort of thing, if you're hearing this and it doesn't sound like that would hurt as much, maybe check out Slay the Spire, because like you can just treat those each individual battle as like, you're sitting down to play another game of this card game, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that might be an easy way to abstract it if you're already interested in card games.
I have 2 suggestions. One is watch people play things. I think thinking about like Hades back in the day when people were still streaming Spelunky nonstop, or daily runs, like Patrick, watching you do daily runs of Spelunky or Binding of Isaac or something like that, where you can learn the rhythm and see someone else. Once you learn the rhythm of play, it feels like it might sting less to understand what a loss is, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. The second one is something like Darkest Dungeon, which has runs where you will lose people, where you will fail, you will take losses, but the meta campaign will continue, and you will make long-term progress in a lot of different ways. And that might be a good way to do it too. Or I guess Rogue Legacy is in there too. I'm not a big Rogue Legacy person, but I know that helped a lot of people. And that might be a good way to have training wheels on. I don't mean that in a pejorative sense.
It's literally to learn.
To learn and feel like, okay, I'm still making progress. This isn't a failure because it still added forward momentum for me. And I know that's really important for a lot of people, if that makes sense. So yeah, hopefully that works out. We're running a little long. I have to bounce, unfortunately. So we wrap this up. You can send your questions to gaming@vice.com. As always, thank you to Bowen for letting us use the track Miss You off the EP Panel Machine. Find out more about that at waypoint.zone/BOEN. Cado, where can people find you?
At @A_Cado_appears.
Patrick.
At Patrick Klepek.
We'll be back later this week for another episode. We'll be doing some more Wilderness streaming. We'll be doing some Resident Evil this week streaming.
Yeah, we have to.
You have to finish it, right?
A week plus, a weekish from now. So we have, and we have to record a Waypoint 101 on Resident Evil on Friday morning. So
right.
By hell or high water,
it's getting
Rob
done.
And I are gonna finish Resident Evil. So I would say, I don't know. He's
look forward to
unfortunately out today, but we'll figure it out
soon. All right. Have I done everything else? I guess I have. So until later this week. Fuck capitalism, go home. I mean, still fuck capitalism later this week also then. All right, bye.